Hey everyone, it's Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 68 of my Metal Vaults, where I will be exploring and showing you my favorite albums within heavy metal to thrash metal to death metal, black metal, doom metal, sludge metal, folk metal, you name it. All of that excellent stuff. As well as talking about the albums, I will also be talking about the band. So a brief history and any releases leading up to the album that I have picked. And before I get onto this absolute beast of an album, want to apologize for not getting this out sooner. I was out on the weekend, last weekend, with some mates, and it was my birthday this week, so I've been occupied with that. I got a tattoo done, which is covered at the moment, but you will see that in future episodes. And of course, busy with the usual stuff, as you know, life gets in the way. But here I am with a new episode and another classic album, and this will be released on the 9th. So by the time you're watching this, it will be the 9th, and I will be at a mate's wedding that day. So let's crack on with the album that I have picked here for you guys now. If you are not familiar with this band, I will tell you about this band, but for those who do know this band, you know these guys. And if you were lucky enough to see these guys live when they came over to the UK in the 90s, very jealous, I have to say. The band that I'm talking about is Nocturnus. And when I say they were one of the first death metal bands to use keyboards, they definitely were one of the first bands to be playing keyboards, not only in studio but also live. Because when you think keyboards and metal, you think more symphonic metal bands, power metal bands, even some heavy metal bands. There's quite a lot of black metal bands that use keyboards and folk metal, of course, but not very many on the death metal side. Of course, My Dying Bride, of course, back in the day were on the death doom metal side. Still got that vibe, but more gothic death doom, I would like to say. But it's got that darker edge right there. But these guys thought, let's take the death metal genre a bit further because everyone else was just doing just what you would normally hear in death metal is just guitars, bass, drums, vocals. When you heard like Scream Bloody Gore and um Leprosy, and then the first two Pestilence albums, and this goes on. And yeah, these guys thought let's just have keyboards all the time because there are interviews of them talking about this, especially Mike, and trying to remember the keyboard is his name right now, but it will come to me once I am talking about this album. And let's crack on with that. It is once again here. This is Nocturnus. This is their debut from 1990. The Key. Love that artwork. You can tell who that's by. Love that logo right there. We'll take the booklet out of the case because obviously it glares. Hence why I always show them like this. Of course, we got the album title there. Got the band there with the song titles. The Earache logo. Of course, it was released on that label. They were on that label at that time. There's the CD. Of course, got the album title there in green. Really cool there. Um, Booklet as well. And the same band picture that's on the back of the CD. Of course, there's the logo again. Really cool logo. Love it. And who done what on the album. And yes, you saw a very familiar name right there. Because lyrics, band picture with the lyrics there, logo, more lyrics, more lyrics there, and a band picture there with the thanks. And show these logos again here. And Yeah, what an album. If you are not familiar with this album, I highly recommend it. Especially if you love your technical death metal, because it is a very technical album. Very technical indeed. And let's talk about this band, Nocturnus. When did they form? When did they split up? So they formed in 1987, and it does say here, known as one of the first death metal bands to incorporate keyboards, sound effects, and science fiction themed lyrics into their music. So there's a lot of science fiction themed lyrics within their music, along with um, occultism and very much a lot of other lyrics involved in it as well. But Mike added science fiction to occultism and Satanism within their music. So, yeah, formed in 1987, then split up in 1993, then reformed in 1999, and then finally split up for the final time in 2002. And before I crack on, I'd like to say a nice cheers to you all. Hope you're having a good. It's still Friday here at the moment, but this will be out on Saturday, and I will be at a mate's wedding that day. So by that time, have a happy, well, have a happy Friday now. But once this is out on my channel, a happy Saturday as well. So this band here, they were going to be called Nocturnal Spectre because Mike wanted to call the band that based on a based on lyrics featured in Slayer's 1985 track "At Dawn They Sleep." But then not wanting to steal any still ideas from like other bands, they just settled on Nocturnus. And of course, for those who are really into the underground scene of death metal, will know this band because this was a band I think got overlooked a lot as well because you had all the bigger bands like Death and Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angel, Suffocation, Obituary, Deicide, and these guys kind of got lost in the shuffle a lot with some other bands that I featured on here as well. But these guys definitely made their mark, adding samples of like very sci-fi samples, like alien sounds and just other sci-fi-esque sound effects. And of course, having keyboards, not only in studio but live. And of course, Mike Browning was one of the founding members of this band because before he was in this band, and a lot of you know what band he was in before, like I said, if you are familiar with this, but for those who are not, he used to be the original drummer as well as vocalist for Morbid Angel. Yeah, Morbid Angel. He was on the first three demos, as well as the unreleased album, which wasn't released until 1991, called Abominations of Desolation. Really, really cool release, by the way, if you haven't heard it. And of course, after he departed from Morbid Angel, he went on to form Nocturnus, and then he formed Nocturnus AD in 1999. That band is still currently going today. They reformed in 2013. They split up a couple of times before that. But after departing away from Nocturnus, he was basically kicked out by the other guys. He went on to play with Acheron. Now everyone knows Acheron because for a while they were split up from 2017, from 20, pretty much only lasted 2017 to 2018 because they split up quite a few times. But recently reformed this year, so for anyone that then hasn't got to see him live yet, you may have a chance. And I do have the debut, of course, if you've watched one of my videos showing my favorite death metal albums. And the reason I bring Asheron up is because Vincent Crowley used to be in the band from the beginning. He was on the very first demo, and then I think let's get him up a minute because I think he left. I think after it was released. Oh, he's only the guitarist from 1987 because there is actually footage online on YouTube that you can find of that rehearsal, and you can see him in the footage. But that's a really cool demo as well. And I think this is before they even had a keyboard player in the band. Speaking of which, let's talk about the two demos before leading up to this absolute beast of a debut. So the first demo is Nocturnus, which was an independent release on, of course, released it on cassette and 4 tracks. And of course, this is before they had their keyboard player. So you had Mike Browning on drums and vocals, Richard Bateman on bass, Vincent Crowley on guitars, and Gino Marino on guitars. And of course, Richard and Gino have since passed away. Gino in 2017 and Richard Bateman in 2018. So yeah, Gino sadly passed away. Yeah, in 2017 of cancer, which is just it's heartbreaking. Like I say, when someone in the metal scene dies, it just affects everyone. But his legacy does live on within what he put on to the first two demos for Nocturnus, and he was also in Nocturnus AD from 99 to 2000. And as well as Incubus from 86 to 89, did that one demo called Incubus, and was in After Death. Um, right, so get back on that one. So Richard Bateman, of course, was in one of his last active bands was Agent Steel, but he was also in After Death. Nasty Savage, Nocturnus, Nocturnus AD, as well as other bands. Um, he sadly passed away in 2018 of a heart attack. But again, his musical legacy, along with Gino's musical legacy, lives on within the demos that they did for the early incarnations of this band, which gets on to their 1988 demo, The Science of Horror, which the first demo had tracks which would be featured on this release, as well as this demo will have songs on that album as well. Now, this is when they got Mike Davis on guitars, Louis Panzer, who was the keyboardist, obviously Mike on drums and vocals, Jeff Yeats, I think it is pronounced that way, Estes. I hope it's pronounced that way. Played bass on this demo, and of course, Gino was the guitarist on this demo as well. So Louis, I don't think he's doing much these days, as far as I know. No, so this was his only band he ever did. He became the full-time keyboardist for the band. But yeah, he pretty much added that sci-fi, very dark, like sci-fi, kind of sci-fi film feel to this music. It's like, think of any sci-fi film with like a really cool soundtrack. You just incorporate that into death metal, and you got this. So Gino, if he left in 1988, so after this demo was done, and then that gets on to the debut, The Key. Now, and that introduced Sean on guitar, and he was in the band from 89 to 93, and in 99 to 2002, when the band finally split up, he was also in another band called Fatal Blessing, which is currently not on this site. Because as you know, I use the Metal Archives to look up a lot of this stuff. But yeah, so really, he only had the two bands. But his guitar playing, as well as Mike Davis's guitar play is incredible. Those guys can shred, and Mike Davis just when you hear this album, you hear a lot of so much shredding. If you're not into really technical guitar work and you're not into technical sounding metals like your technical death metal and technical thrash, just any technical band, this won't be for you. But if you like it, then this is definitely for you. And this was his only band he was in. Oh no, wait, he was in another band which is still currently going now, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce this name, but also from Tampa, Florida, which I think I forgot to mention. These guys are from Tampa, Florida, so a great, so another awesome death metal band from that area of Florida. There's so many more that have coming out from Tampa, but let's get back to this album. So that's the members sorted. So guess before I get onto the guest musicians, so Photographs was done by Dennis Osborne, who has only done autographs, like, photographs for two bands, so Nocturnus and Sabotage, for their album Gutter Gutter Ballet. And as well, he was in a band called White Friday. Never heard of him, but I might give him a good listen. For the logo, that was R.P. Roberts. He's done logos for obviously Nocturnus AD, as well as Brutality, another band from Tampa, Florida, who I have mentioned. And for the producing and engineering, that was Tom Morris, because of course they went to Morris Sound Studios. Just gonna have another beer here. Gonna drink him a beer. And he's done a lot. He's done guest stuff for guest vocals and even guitars for guitars for one band and orchestration and guitar for one band here. Grand piano for one band, but vocals for one, notably another one from Florida, Iced Earth. As for mixing, engineering, mastering, Agent Steel, we got Atrocity for their album Hallucinations. If you've not heard that, you should definitely check it out. Brutality for the engineer, like the demos, but it's the box sets, and that was 2011. Corner. Um, who else that people would know here? Diabolic. Um, Epitaph, but the one from Florida, which is still currently going, and of course there's the one from Sweden, which I have mentioned. Um, Eulogy, Iced Earth, as I mentioned. Uh, the other band called Incubus with their album Beyond the Unknown. Creator, um, excuse me, Monstrosity, Morbid Angel, of course, their first, the first album they ever they released, their monster debut from 1989, Alters the Madness, which I have mentioned here on this series. Necrophagia, of course, Nocturnus, as we're talking about. Of course, he did the engineering producing for this album, as well as their second album, Thresholds, which is also a really cracking album as well. Obituary for Frozen in Time. Of course, the producing for what Incubus went on to become, and I'm not even going to try to say their name because I'm not sure how to say it, but you probably know who I'm on about when I say that. Sabotage, Sepultura for Beneath the Remains. And I know Scott Burns worked on that as well. Um, he didn't work on this one. Tardy Brothers release. Trivium for Ember to Inferno, which was their first album, if I believe, if I say it. Yeah, Trivium's first album from 2003. So he did Trivium's first album, which is, I think, really cool. Of course, Whiplash and a band called uh Voodoo Cult. I'm not sure about them. Don't know if you're familiar with them. Let me know. And Toxic. Another good band right there for World Circus and Think This. But World Circus, cracking album. And the last two here. So we got J Barry Inc. Incorporated for the what was it? Let me have a look at that again. Was it the logo? Yeah, no, the layout of the album. For Cathedral, we did the layout for Cathedral's debut, Forest of Equilibrium, Fudge Tunnels, Hate Songs in E minor, Godflesh Split, a single, Godflesh, Statement and Wound, Massacres from Beyond, Morbid Angels, Blessed Are the Sick, and Abominations of Desolation, Napalm Death for Utopia Banished, as well as Death by Manipulation compilation, and the both Nocturnus albums, The Key and Thresholds. And that's all those who done. I know it, and of course, when I did the artwork, he's been mentioned here quite a few times. The one who brings all of this awesome artwork to these bands, Dan Seagrave. And of course, you know the bands he's done, but let's quickly go through a bunch. So, Benediction, Carnage, keep going to Decrepit Birth, Disgrace, Devourment, Dismember, Edge of Sanity, Entomb, Exodus, Faceless Burial, Gorguts, Hypocrisy, Ingested, Insidious Disease, for their 2020 release, Monmouth of Death, who I got to see August of this year, Maverick Creation, Memoriam, Morbid Angel, Monstrosity for their debut in Imperial Doom, Paganizer, Pestilence, Rivers of Nile, Skeletal Remains, Suffocation, The Troops of Doom, Vader for their debut album, The Ultimate Incantation, and their 2017 release Dark Age, which is a song on that first album, and Warbringer, just to name a few right now, more than a few, but you know what I mean. And let's crack on with the songs because I'm going to get on to who the guest musician that they had on here, the guest vocals that they had on this album. So let's get on with the songs. So the first one I ever heard by this band is the opening track, and it's got this epic opening, really cool, like ambient style type of well, more it's kind of ambient sounding anyway. I think what I think is anyway. You might think different, but it's kind of ambient, but it's like very, of course, that word again, sci-fi, very sci-fi-esque sounding keyboards, and that is Lake of Fire, and it just goes straight into like you hear guitars and soloing and the drums, like Mike hitting the crash cymbals, and it just kicks right in, and you got that really somewhat haunting keyboard bit when you're hearing all the guitars and the bass going on. And then Standing in Blood being the second track on this album. A very got a very cool opening there. And then it just kicks right in with just one of the guitars, and then just get one of the guitars and then kicks right in. Mike's vocals throughout this album are on point. I think he's a really, really cool vocalist. He can really bring the power to that. And his drumming, I love his drumming. Really, his drumming on here is to me excellent. And then it goes into Visions from Beyond the Grave, which again another solid song right here. With very much the same solos from Mike and Sean. Those two of them know how to complement each other when it comes to them. So you hear Mike doing a solo, and then you get Sean doing a solo, and then you get Louis' keyboards coming in from time to time, and it's just well balanced. Um, there's a really cool keyboard bit just before the song even ends, like because you get the guitar playing at first, and then you get the keyboard in there right after, and that is for Neolithic. And one that became one of my favorite songs, as well as Standing in Blood and Visions from Beyond the Grave. And then the one after Neolithic, just yeah, because there's one bit in one of the songs you get like the wind blowing, that really cool keyboard sound, and that. And I think that might be on track 7. I'm thinking of, but this might have, but no, wait, this has like the wind sound effect. That is BCAD, which is before Christ after death. Now, before I crack on with the other songs, for of course, Lake of Fire, Standing in Blood, and this one, and I also believe for Visions from Beyond the Grave, you hear, and I mentioned the band earlier, the guest vocalist that they had on this album, and a lot of people know who was the guest vocalist on this album doing a lot of backing stuff, was Cam Lee. And he was already well established within the Florida metal scene, being in Death from the beginning, but before they were called Death Mantis. Yeah, let's get Cam Lee up because he's had a lot of projects like Bone Gnawer, which reformed last year, so there may be a chance of something new from them. Broken Gravestones, Grave Wax, his own project under his name. Massacre, of course, still going, and I got to see him 2 years ago. And as I'm talking about this band and I'm talking about Cam Lee, I will put the chat down in there just in case you haven't watched it. Because I had him on my chat. And his Doom band that I had, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce, but it's a really cool band. Akafada, I think that is how it's pronounced. I think how he was teaching me how to say it in the chat that we did. Of course, he was in Death. He was drums and vocals, as well as Mantis before they were called Death. He was in Denial Fiend. Um, Countless other bands, one called the Grotesquerie. Guest stuff for Acheron, as well as Evolved, Benediction on Scriptures. Fantastic album, you haven't heard it. Body Farm, Bonesaw, Cadaver, Coffins, Fed It Zombie, of course, that's Mark Riddick's band. And of course, did my logo as well as other bands and other YouTubers' logos. Yeah, it's done a lot, and of course, all backing stuff on this album, and yeah, and Pungent Stench, Raised by Owls, or their single, because they all got together, so like Cam Lee, Carl Willits, Dave Ingram did that with Raised by Owls. Tons of vocalists did that. It's really cool as well. So yeah, you hear his vocals quite a bit on this, and once you hear him, you know it's him. You instantly know it's Cam Lee. But yeah, you hear him quite a bit on this album, and yeah, and again, yeah, Mike and Cam compliment each other on that as well with their vocals. And now let's get on to the next song, Andromeda Strain. Love it. Got the drums, you got like a nice little sweet part there with with soloing from either, I think it's either from Mike or Sean, but it might be both of them doing it at the same time. But either way, really, really cool to hear. And then you get on to Droid Sector, which has got that keyboard bit of like, and I think it's the this guy right here, the Android, like the sound of the Android there. I think I want to say, but yeah, it's just I just love how they mix like sci-fi with death metal, and it's like basically just you know the story about this album is basically like this being going back in time and just changing history basically. The next one, track number 8, and Of course, there's two of the longest tracks on here are the last two tracks, and track number 8 being Destroying the Manger. Again, carrying on where pretty much Laker Fire started, basically carrying on from those strong openings from Laker Fire, Standing in Blood, Visions from Beyond the Grave, and Neolithic just went straight in there, and this again having that sci-fi-esque ambient sounding keyboards right there. Still getting the keyboards throughout this. Keyboards are all throughout this album, and it's just awesome. And then we end with just just a great closer to the album, Empire of the Sands, which just perfectly closes off this album. And just like I said, if you haven't heard this yet, you need to check out. If you love extreme music, like extreme metal, be it death metal, be it black metal, and you like keyboards, you like metal with keyboards, you're gonna like this. So like I said, they were one of the first death metal bands to pretty much incorporate keyboards within the music. And yeah, and there's even an interview with Mike and Louis when they did the grindcore documentary. So there was a bunch of bands on there like uh Prophecy of Doom and Bolt Thrower and Napalm Death were on it as well. And there was members, a fan saying that they were going to do keyboards for their band, but thought now it wouldn't work. And then their album comes out and it's accepted, and they were kicking themselves in the ass for not doing it, basically. Just paraphrasing from what I on that interview. And there's something I think a lot of people might know something about this album, but where's the bass player? What's his name again? Jeff. And there's Jeff. He may be on the back of this, but I believe, if I remember correctly, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Sean, but they had to redo his bass because he was just. And I think if I remember from one interview, I can't remember who, it might have been Mike talking about like he was just going out all the time, arguing with his then girlfriend, and and the bass wasn't coming out right, so they had to redo it. And but yeah, but apart from that, this album is absolutely fantastic, and it's one of my favorites because it's just how well done it really is. And man, just just a fantastic album. And like I said, if you're not really into stuff with keyboards, this is definitely not for you. If you love your death metal without all that, this won't be for you at all. But me, I like this stuff. I like it when a band does incorporate, well, does something new, incorporate something like keyboards. And it's just, yeah, they just blended it so well with all the guitars, the bass, the drums, and it all just blends really, really well. And you might listen to this and think, I don't like it because of that reason, but then you might think, okay, I'll give it another listen, and you might, okay, and then you listen to it again, it's like, okay, I like this now, and then you totally get, you totally get the feel of the album. But very, very, very just solid death metal right here with themes of time travel, aliens, and pretty much a lot of sci-fi related lyrics in this, along with occultism and the Necronomicon. So a lot of so basically occultism, sci-fi, and H.P. Lovecraft themes here. So when I say Necronomicon, that's where my mind instantly goes to. So my overall conclusion of this album, well, it is heavy, definitely a heavy album. It's it's unique because at the time it was a unique album because it was a a heavy band, a death metal band using an instrument that you wouldn't normally hear within that style of music, that style, that genre of metal. It's well executed. Everything is blended so well together. Keyboards are very much their dead center, along with the guitars. All the instruments, all the guitar, bass, the drums, keyboards, all those are centered right there. Mike's vocals are really cool on this. And obviously, he would play drums and do vocals for live shows. Whoever got to see him when they came to the UK back in the 90s, very, very jealous, I have to say. And most importantly, that all important word I like to end with, it is a timeless masterpiece because of it being so unique when it came out back in 1990. Because there was a lot of bands doing that now, but these guys paved the way for a lot of death metal bands to do that. Which I believe is the case that they just, well, what are they? If they put keyboards in death metal, like if there's a someone checking them out, it's like, well, if they're putting keyboards in death metal, my band's going to do the same thing. And you know what? It paid off for these guys because they went on to do a tour around the UK, like around Europe, UK. So they went on tour with Napalm Death, Godflesh, um, and then did a tour with Bolt Thrower as well, and countless other bands. And then, of course, went on to do a second album. Of course, Mike just went on to play drums, and they got. I have to go back to Threshold because what the hell's that guy's name? Dan, that's it. On vocals for that album, and that album's great as well. But a lot of people say this one is the best, and I agree. It is the best one in their discography. I've not actually heard the last album. I don't. Yeah, I've not heard the last one, which is Imperial Tomb. I've not actually heard that properly, but I will get around to it eventually. But definitely, definitely this one right here you need to check out if you have not yet. So, the recap, heavy, unique, everything blends well together, well executed, timeless masterpiece. And that artwork by Dan Seagrave, absolutely incredible. Incredible album, awesome death metal. And need I say more? For all you new fans of death metal, more on the technical side of death metal, you're more into your tech death, do check this out. Nocturnus and The Key. Solid, solid death metal right here. And it's very, very, it was very different for bands. Especially like Blues are like, oh yeah, I love Death, love Morbid Angel, love all this, like Autopsy as well. And they hear that and like, there's a keyboard in this. And they hear it's like, wow, this is really cool. I love it. Probably a lot of them were probably thinking when they saw like, well, I don't know about this, but then a lot of them like, yeah, love it, really cool. But some are like, yeah, I don't know. But everyone's got their opinions. Everyone's got their taste in certain types of bands. So a lot of them will just like it with just guitars and vocals and bass and drums and nothing else and no keyboards, nothing. But then this comes along and there's more bands doing it now, more death metal bands doing it, and you know what? It's accepted, and it's definitely an album that I would highly recommend. And anyone else that has talked about this album on their channels would highly recommend as well. And of course, that brings us to the end of this episode. And I would like to thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and enjoy the other episodes within this series and my other videos as well, so my content, please like this video, share it around, comment down below. How did you get into Nocturnus? Or like, what was the first album you ever heard? Was it The Key? Was it Thresholds? Did you see him on their tour when they came to the UK and well, wherever you are in the world, so be it the UK, in Europe? Were you at their very first show? And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with everything that I have coming up for not only this series, but I do have that collection update soon that might be split into two parts. So one might be cassettes and CDs, and the other one will just be strictly vinyl, and I might do it from this bit here, from when I talk about my vinyl. Not entirely sure yet, because usually when I'm talking about stuff, I just like to have, especially if it's CDs and that, on the table. And as well, there will be more chats. If you've not checked out my recent chat yet, my latest Jake's Metal Chat interview, it'll be somewhere around here. Maybe, might, yep, most likely, I don't know, right there, it'll be right there. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go watch it, give it a like, share it around, like you for this video as well. So, thank you very much for tuning in. I have been Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. Do keep that banner of metal well and truly high. And I will see you all again in another episode of my Metal Vault.